time will prove. Yes, only time will prove if I have lost my way. 'Cause I hear tell about a heaven in Alberta, where they've got all hell for basements. Yeah, I've lost my way, but I hear tell about a heaven in Alberta, where they've got all hell for basements.
Hi, everyone. Frankie here. New West Reset. Hello. Hello there. How's it going, eh? Welcome back. Thank you very much for shooting in. Joining a fella here for another live New West Reset live episode 87 here today. We're looking at Canadian Turkey Day. It's Thanksgiving up here in Canada land, don't you know? Well, technically the official Thanksgiving Day is tomorrow, but most Canadians do it on the Sunday, so you can, get together with friends, family, have some turkey, and then, Monday you can relax, maybe watch some football, whatever the case may be. Anyway, thank you for joining me here on the special early morning edition. It's, well, early-ish, 10 a.m. here, local time. That's mountain time, don't you know? And as always, coming at you live from Calgary, here in southern Alberta, up in Canada. Purdy, Alberta, and it's pretty nice today so far, considering it's still early in the day. Plus 3 degrees Celsius, so at least it's above freezing. That's about, high 30s, low 40s Fahrenheit, something like that. I don't know. It's decent. Blue skies, sunny day. It's supposed to warm up quite a bit later on today. So, looking forward to that. So I appreciate you joining me here at this early time period. Let's see who's here. Let's say hello to everybody in the chat, in the box. See what's what. Got Carmichael here. Welcome. Good to see you. Rothrod's in the box as well. Shooting in from the Kootenays. Howdy to you. Kathy Childers is here from Kentucky, the bluegrass state. Hope everything's going well down there after the big, hurricanes couple, I think. I don't know. It's been rough. Anyway, I hope you're doing well. Old World Mi'kmaq in the box. Kwenidap. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Turtle's here, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you very much. Heidi's in the box as well. Hello. Welcome. PCS World. Kevin is here as well. Good to see you, Kevin. Happy Sunday to you as well. It is, yeah. It's Sunday, October the 13th, 2024. As mentioned, just a little past 10 a.m. local time, mountain time. So thanks for joining me. The reason I'm going on a little earlier is, as mentioned, most Canadians do their Thanksgiving dinner on the Sunday rather than the Monday. And that's the case with this fella here, too. Going to be heading out to my niece's place around 2 o'clock or so. Get there and have time to have some appetizers and maybe a cold wobbly pop. And then, I'm going to throw some turkey and stuffing and all the fixings down my throat. I'll put that in my eating hole so it goes down my food tube, you see. That's a good question. PCS World in the Box saying, if you're questioning our history, why would you celebrate a holiday? Yeah, it's a very good question. And we're going to look into the history of Thanksgiving up here in Canada land here for the show. But honestly, for me, it's really just an opportunity to get together with friends and family and loved ones and just, have some good food and commiserate and socialize, catch up on stuff. My parents live in a little town outside of Calgary. My niece, whose place I'm going to for dinner, her and her husband and their two little ones, they live in a little town outside of Calgary. And then my sister and brother-in-law live about a 2-hour drive south of Calgary, real close to the American border here in the far southern Alberta. So with that said, not as much opportunity to get together and see each other as much as we would like. So, when a holiday comes around, it's really just an excuse to get together, catch up, enjoy each other's company and whatnot. But yeah, yeah, and a lot of people don't really bother. It's just that generally speaking, most people, the average normie who's working a 9 to 5 they would have the holiday off, right? So it's just the best opportunity to get together. If you see what I'm saying, if you smell what I'm cooking. Morgan is here. Isabella Live 2.0. Welcome. Thanks for shooting in. Good to see you. Kevin's asking, what topics are you going to talk about on the live stream? Well, we're going to have a look at Canadian Thanksgiving, or as we call it up in Canada, Thanksgiving. And, we're going to look into the history of it a little bit, according to, of course, Wikipedia. Got a couple of other sources, Canadian History .ca, as well as the Canadian Encyclopedia, just to give us a little bit of background on the Canadian Turkey Day. So yeah, thank you once again for joining me here on this, well, we're going to call it Thanksgiving. It's a day early, but Thanksgiving it is. And of course, it's Sunday. So you know what that means. It's Sunday Fun Day. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's right. Turtle says, I never pass up a chance at turkey dinner with all the fixings. You got it. Stuffing, turkey, mashed potatoes, gravy, maybe some corn on the cob, maybe salad, some dinner rolls, dessert, you get your pumpkin pie and whatnot. Old World Mi'kmaq in the box says Cherokee sounds like turkey. You know what else sounds like turkey? Turkey, the country, Turkey. I always found that to be an odd name for a country. Well, we're going to name our country after a delicious bird that's generally eaten around the holiday season. I'm sure that's not the case, but it's weird. Kind of like chili. Chili, like a bowl of chili, but the country chili, even though it's Chile, not chili, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah, and that's exactly how I am too, PCS World. He says, don't get me wrong, I join in on the festivities. I just don't believe the history of or what we celebrate. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Yeah, turkey jerky. That's not bad, It's not too bad at all, actually, to be honest with you. I've had it before. Yeah, exactly. What we know today is organized religion. It's just a big tax sheltered institution. So anyway, it is what it is. So I thank you here for joining me on this early edition, on this Thanksgiving edition of the show, or Canadian Thanksgiving, that is. So links for everything that we're going to share will be in the description below. As mentioned, Wikipedia and a couple of other links, as well as the links to my location map that my cousin Vinny's been hard at work at maintaining that. BitChute, MeWe, and a fellow's email is down there as well. So if you want to get a hold of me, would love to hear from you. As well as the Bumble channel, that green app where they do the fighting over there on the Bumble, broadcasting live simultaneously on the YouTubes and on the Bumble. So welcome everybody. Good to see you. What else we got? I got a couple of little videos here. I found a funny little video of from a Canadian YouTube channel where he's explaining Canadian Thanksgiving to an American. It's a funny little skit. It's just a couple minutes long. So we're going to have a look at that. Of course, as mentioned, we'll have a look at the official story of Canadian Thanksgiving. Then we'll take a mid-show break as per usual, give you a sneak peek at your midweek coming up this Wednesday. Got a good one here for the show today to give you a sneak peek at. And then we'll come back and we'll have a look at some photos and stuff like that there, have a little fun at the end and chit-chat for a little bit before our guys got to sign off and, jump in the shower and get ready to hit the road. I'm going to sip the coffee. I'm still on my morning coffee routine here right now, as mentioned, just after 10 a.m. So I think it's super early for a lot of you. So if that's the case, really appreciate you joining me here a much earlier hour of the show. It might even be super late for some of you, like in the middle of the night or the wee hours of the morning. So if that's the case, well, wow, thank you. Really appreciate you being here. Those of you who are watching this thing after the fact, after the live, thanks for your support. Really appreciate it. And speaking of support, if you haven't already, give a guy one of these, if you don't mind, or one of these, it's fine. I'm not going to cry in my turkey and gravy and cranberry sauce. And thank you to everybody who's already shared and subscribed. Really appreciate it. And if you haven't already done so, please do. It just kind of helps to push a guy out into the algorithm a little bit as we make our way to 2,000 subscribers here on the channel. PCS World says, to my knowledge, the U.S. did not serve turkey at the first Thanksgiving. Yeah, I think that sort of became a thing later on. I'm not entirely sure about that. I know here in Canada land, for the first few decades, Thanksgiving wasn't, we'll get into it. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too much, but it wasn't observed on the same day and even annually at first, right? And of course, the first meal wasn't, roast turkey with stuffing and mashed potatoes and all that. But it sort of evolved into that. I don't know. Sometimes I think these holidays become standardized by, the powers who should not be or something. Because as we progress through the timeline in the official history here, it's the Canadian Thanksgiving and American Thanksgiving, they start lining up real quick, except for the date. Obviously, ours is the middle of October. It's usually, I think, the second Monday in October, whereas in the U.S., obviously, it's in November. And the reason for that, they say, is because it's linked to European harvest festivals. So at the end of the season, when you've harvested all of your, wheat or barley or corn or whatever, the work for the whole season is done and everything's been stored or sold or good to go, then you have a big celebration. The community gets together and has a big feast to celebrate the harvest, yada, yada, yada. And obviously, with us being much more northerly up here in Canadian land, winter comes a little earlier than it does in the U.S., especially as you get into the southern states. Snow starts to fly here as early as now, although it's been quite warm this past week. But, we could get snow as early as October, November. So you want to get your celebrations done prior to, getting massive amounts of snow and cold wind blowing in. You see what I'm saying? So that's the story they give us. We have a shorter growing season, and our harvest comes much sooner because winter, it sneaks up on a guy. Old man winter's very sneaky. He's like a ninja. Before you know it, there he is. BCS World says it's a better time for me. The Packers don't play for another hour. There you go. Got to support the team. Green Bay. Yeah. Ours is the first because we're colder climates. We need to start feasting before the frost hits. And yeah, that's right. Exactly. And the crops are brought in sooner by about a month. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Beef tenderloin, says Kathy Childers. We have beef tenderloin for Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah, a lot of people actually, have to, you can only have so much turkey, right? Especially if you do the third turkey for Thanksgiving and then for Christmas. I mean, it's weird, right? Nobody ever eats a roast turkey in May or June or July. You never hear of turkey dinner for the 4th of July, Independence Day in the US, or July 1st for that matter, up here in Canada land for Canada Day. So, yeah, I don't know. Duck, sure, delicious. Duck. Or you could have goose, you could have a Christmas goose. That's pretty traditional as well. What's going on with Heidi here? Heidi Easterholm says, I have Thanksgiving at my house. Cooking the meal as my mother did. Never really examined it. They all expect it. Yeah, it sort of becomes a thing, right? Where it's like, it's assumed. All right, who's doing turkey dinner? Like when I was a kid growing up and I still lived at home, my parents would do the Thanksgiving dinner. Generally, Dad would do the turkey, the stuffing, and Mom would do the other stuff. Mom was kind of the queen of the desserts. She'd, bake a stack of pies, right? A couple of pumpkin pies, apple pies. Then, I don't know, maybe a Saskatoon berry pie or a blueberry pie or something. Then as my parents got older and us kids kind of, grew up and moved out and got married and got our own places or so on and so forth, my sister kind of took over for a while. Now my eldest niece is doing it. And she does a great job. She gets her house all decorated nicely, and they get the turkey in the oven. And a guy like me, I'm lucky. All I got to do is just bring a couple of pies with me, and or a couple of bottles of wine, whatever I sort of volunteer myself to bring to the table, and I get off pretty easy. I'm not messing around, slaving around the stove for half the day. Oldworld Mi'kmaq in the box is saying Turkish language is agglutinative. Agglutina. I can't even say that. Agglutinative. Saying that wrong, but anyways, just like Finnish, Hungarian, and Mi'kmaq. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Turtle says, I'll cook whatever. It's really about family. Yeah, that's kind of the deal, too, as I mentioned, It's really just an excuse to get together, have some good food, a couple of libations, and just have a good time. You know what I'm saying? We just like to have a good time.
You know what I mean? All right, we're having a good time.
All right, so what do you say we get the ball rolling? Have a look at this crazy Canadian Thanksgiving here. Or as mentioned, as we call it, Thanksgiving. So let's see what the Wikipedia says here, shall we? About Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving Canada, eh? And again, links in the description below for everything. And this is the Wikipedia's official version. Thanksgiving, or in French, Action de Grâce, or Thanksgiving Day, French, Jour d'Action de Grâce, is an annual Canadian holiday held on the second Monday in October. Outside the country, it may be referred to as Canadian Thanksgiving, to distinguish it from the American holiday of the same name and related celebrations in other regions. Thanksgiving has officially been celebrated as an annual holiday in Canada since November 6th, 1879. While the date varied year by year and was not fixed, it was commonly the second Monday in October, which is what it is now. But as you can see here, it's been celebrated in November. It's been celebrated in October. Kind of bebopping and bouncing all over the calendar there, if you see what I'm saying. Phil's here. Phil Henry in the box. Welcome. Good to see you. Old World Mi'kmaq saying, instead of sentences, we have ling descriptive words glued together. Ah, gotcha. Right, okay. That's what that means. Pardon my naivete, if you will. On January 31st, 1957, the Governor General of Canada, Vincent Massey, issued a proclamation stating, "A day of general thanksgiving to Almighty God for the bountiful harvest with which Canada has been blessed, to be observed on the second Monday in October." Geez, took them long enough to finally nail down a regular date on this thing. 1957. Sheesh, it's like 80 years later. Dragging our feet up here a little bit in Canada land, I guess. Anyway, Thanksgiving's a statutory holiday in most of Canada and an optional holiday in the Atlantic provinces of Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland and Labrador, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. Companies that are regulated by federal governments, such as those in the telecommunications and banking sectors, recognize the holiday everywhere. This is weird, right? Like they have the option to celebrate that. Like, why would you choose not to? It's a day off with pay for most. Like, why would you? We're not going to do that. I'm just going to go to work while everybody else is relaxing, eating turkey, and commiserating with their loved ones. Anyways, as a liturgical festival, whatever liturgical means, I have no idea. Thanksgiving corresponds to the British and continental European Harvest Festival. There we go. With churches decorated with cornucopias, pumpkins, corn, wheat sheaves, and other harvest bounty. While the actual Thanksgiving holiday is on a Monday, Canadians may gather for their Thanksgiving feast on any day during the long weekend. However, Sunday is considered the most common. Yeah, if you don't have your Thanksgiving dinner on the Sunday, people look at you funny. You're crazy. Foods traditionally served at Thanksgiving include roast turkey, roast beef, there it is, ham, stuffing, mashed potatoes with gravy, sweet potatoes, cranberry sauce, sweet corn, various autumn vegetables, including various kinds of squashes. I thought the plural for squash was squash. One squash, two squash? I guess not. But also Brussels sprouts, not my favorite. Pumpkin pie, apple pie, glazed yams. Various regional dishes and desserts may also be served, including salmon, wild game, Jig's dinner, we'll get into what that is, split pea pudding, butter tarts, and Nanaimo bars. Nanaimo bars from Nanaimo, British Columbia. Delicious. Butter tarts. Yummy. What's this Jig's dinner? I think that comes from Newfoundland. Jig's dinner, also called boiled dinner or cooked dinner, is a traditional meal commonly prepared and eaten on Sundays in Newfoundland. There you go. Corned beef and cabbage was a favorite meal of the Jigs. The central character in the popular long-running comic strip Bringing Up Father, but okay, whatever. So they have a little bit of a different traditional meal over there in Newfoundland, eh? In Canadian football, the Canadian Football League has usually held a nationally televised doubleheader, the Thanksgiving Day Classic. It is one of 2 weeks in which the league plays on Monday afternoons, the other being the Labor Day Classic. Wow, Kathy says, when I worked at UPS on the holidays, we got triple time. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Morgan, Isabella Live says, I got a blueberry pie in the fridge / freezer and purple churro Redican. THC sativa. And I'm in heaven. Also have Kush God Indica. Happy Thanksgiving. It's perhaps the best smoke ever. There you go. Yeah, smoke them if you got them. If it's legal, of course. I got to put that caveat out there so I don't get shut down. Anyway, many communities in Canada hold events in the week prior to and or on the day of the holiday. For example, the Markham Fair in Markham, Ontario is an annual agricultural and harvest festival held during the weekend before Thanksgiving. Kitchener-Waterloo Oktoberfest holds an annual parade consisting of floats, civic figures in the region, local performance troops, and marching bands. That's right. Oktoberfest, with the oompampa and the beer and whatnot. And Fort Langley holds a widely attended neighborhood festival celebrating the cranberry harvest, in which local crafts, produce, and artisan goods are sold. Yeah, cranberries grown in and around that area. That's in Ontario, I believe. Let's look at the history now. This is where we get into some confusing, head-scratching shenanigans. According to some historians, the first celebration of Thanksgiving in North America occurred in 1579 after the safe landing of Martin Frobisher's fleet in Newfoundland. After an unsuccessful attempt in search of the Northwest Passage. Oh, these guys looking for that Northwest Passage. I tell you what. How many dudes have gone up trying to find the Northwest Passage and always end up getting stuck in the ice or something? Anyways, his third voyage to the Frobisher Bay area of Baffin Island in the present Canadian territory of Nunavut set out with the intention of starting a small settlement. His fleet of 15 ships was outfitted with men, materials, and provisions. However, the loss of one of his ships through contact with ice, along with many of the building materials, was to prevent him from doing so. Oh, so the ship with all the building materials was the only one out of all those ships that was lost to the ice, eh? The expedition was plagued by ice and freak storms. Yeah, you're up in the Arctic in, the winter. You're not going to get tickled by rainbows and rays of sunshine. Anyway, which at times scattered the fleet. On meeting again at their anchorage in Frobisher Bay, Maester Wolfall, a learned man, appointed by Her Majesty's Council to be their minister and preacher, made unto them a godly sermon, exhorting them especially to be thankful to God for their strange and miraculous deliverance in those so dangerous places. They celebrated Holy Communion, and the celebration of Divine Mystery was the first sign, scale, and confirmation of Christ's name, death, and passion ever known in all these quarters. The notion of Frobisher's service being first on the continent has come into dispute, as Spaniards conducted similar services in Spanish North America during the mid-16th century, decades before Frobisher's arrival. So there you have it. First they say, it was probably it was the first in North America, and then they say, actually no, there's a lot of arguments, and it's probably not the first because the Spaniards would have given thanks too. All right, which one is it? Anyway, years later, French settlers, having crossed the ocean and arrived in Canada with explorer Samuel de Champlain from 1604, also held feasts of thanks. They formed the Order of Good Cheer and held feasts with their First Nations neighbors, at which food was shared. So there you go. Feasts with the wild, crazy, savage Indians. And then sharing the food. That sounds familiar. It sounds just like the American narrative. It's funny, that we get this duality of the narrative with the indigenous First Nations here in North America. There were either, savage warrior tribes that would look out now, they're going to scalp you. But, they would also share food with you in the winter so you didn't starve to death. Guess that's so they could scalp you in the spring? I don't know. It's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, after the 7 Years' War ended in 1763 with New France handed over to the British, the citizens of Halifax, Nova Scotia held a special day of Thanksgiving. A few years later, the Pontiac War would occur and result in a partial military victory in 1766. Thanksgiving days were observed beginning in 1799, but did not occur every year. The 1799 Thanksgiving was held to commemorate the military victory of British North America over its enemy. So initially, they're saying that Thanksgiving was to give thanks for making their way through the terrible weather conditions up in the Arctic and in and around Baffin Island and Newfoundland and Labrador, trying to find a Northwest Passage there in the wintertime. But they're also saying that Thanksgiving was observed to celebrate winning battles or wars. So again, kind of a dual thing going on there. But anyway, during and after the American Revolution, American refugees who remained loyal to Great Britain moved from the newly independent United States to the provinces that would later unite as the Dominion of Canada, such as Nova Scotia and the province of Quebec. They brought the customs and practices of the American Thanksgiving to Canada, such as turkey, pumpkin, and squash, or squashes. Yeah, because Canada never had turkeys, pumpkins, or any other kind of squash before the Americans decided to come up here, I guess, which is, well, it's a load of crap, is what it is. I don't believe that for a second.
Oh, shit!
I mean, maybe the custom of, having a big dinner, but even that, I don't know, because we were already having big thanks feasts. Who knows? Lower Canada, which is the British colony in and around Quebec-ish, and Upper Canada, which is Ontario-ish, they observe Thanksgiving on different dates. Great, even more confusing. For example, in 1816, both celebrated Thanksgiving for the termination of the War of 1812 between France, the U.S., and Great Britain. So even that took them 4 years to decide, yeah, let's celebrate the winning of that war with Thanksgiving. Let me see here. With Lower Canada marking the day May 21st and Upper Canada June 18th, or Waterloo Day. Well, so going way back to the spring here for these Thanksgivings. That's weird. In 1838, Lower Canada used Thanksgiving to celebrate the end of Lower Canada Rebellion. See, again, another skirmish. Following the rebellions, the two Canadas were merged into a united province of Canada, which observed Thanksgiving 6 times from 1850 to 1865. During this period, Thanksgiving was a solemn midweek celebration. We're going to have Thanksgiving on Hump Day Wednesday, y'all. Get your turkey in the oven. The first Thanksgiving Day after Confederation, which was July 1st, 1867, was observed as a civic holiday on April 5th, 1872, to celebrate the recovery of Prince of Wales, later King Edward, from a serious illness. Man, we're finding every excuse here to eat turkey up in Canada. It's the harvest. Oh, it's we made it through the ice pack. Oh, we won a war. Oh, the king doesn't have a cold anymore. That's great. Get that turkey in the oven, people. For many years before it was declared a national holiday in 1879, Thanksgiving was celebrated either late October or early November. From 1879 onward, Thanksgiving Day has been observed every year, the date initially being a Thursday in November. Man, after World War I, an amendment to the Armistice Day Act established that Armistice Day and Thanksgiving would, starting on 1921, both be celebrated on the Monday of the week in which November 11th occurred. So initially in Canada land, our Thanksgiving was on Remembrance Day or Armistice Day. 10 years later, in 31, the 2 days became separate holidays, and Armistice Day was renamed Remembrance Day. From 31 to 57, the date was set by proclamation, generally falling on the second Monday in October, except for 1935 when it was moved to a general election. Sheesh. In 57, Parliament fixed Thanksgiving as the second Monday in October. The theme of the Thanksgiving holiday also changed each year to reflect an important event to be thankful for. In its early years, it was for an abundant harvest and occasionally for a special anniversary or for winning some kind of battle, apparently. So, yeah, there you have it, all over the map with Thanksgiving as to dates for it and reasons for it. Sheesh. Sheesh, I say. PCS World says, I don't understand how we could have lived in this country for 200 years without celebrating Thanksgiving. Well, it takes time, you see. You got to dig out all the mud flooded buildings and plant your crops. And, then you got to get some farms and ranches going. Got to get the railroad going through there too to unite the nation. Then you can have some roast turkey and stuffing and pumpkin pie, I guess. I don't know. Let's see what else we got here. This is CanadaHistory.ca. The history of Thanksgiving in Canada. Let's have a look at what these clowns say and see if there's any discrepancies in the narrative or whatnot here. So the history of Thanksgiving in Canada. Where did the tradition come from? This is an older article from 2018, but it's fine. Thanksgiving weekend. For many, this long weekend really kicks off the autumn season. People across the country will spend it raking leaves, harvesting, shutting down the family cabin, and hopefully eating a delicious meal surrounded by friends and family. But where did this tradition come from? In 1621, the Pilgrims at Plymouth Plantation, Massachusetts, held what is thought to be the first Thanksgiving in North America, giving thanks for the end to a drought and a bountiful harvest. If there was a drought, how could they have a bountiful harvest? I don't know. Without the help of the Wampanoag, who had shared planting, hunting, and fishing knowledge and techniques, the Pilgrims would have died. Some records say the first official Thanksgiving likely predates this event by around 14 years. So then why are you quoting this one as the first if there was one 14 years earlier? I don't know. Anyway, again, the narrative of the wild savage Indians come to the aid of the early pioneers and settlers. But let's try again. We're thinking of our neighbors to the south. Believe it or not, Thanksgiving in Canada, or at least the land that would become Canada, has its own history, separate from our American counterparts. Well, of course it does, dum-dum. Traditions of giving thanks long predate the arrival of European settlers in North America. First Nations across Turtle Island have traditions of Thanksgiving for surviving winter and receiving crops and game as a reward for their hard work. These traditions may include feasting, prayer, dance, potlatch, and other ceremonies, depending on the people's giving thanks. So again, much like in the US, Canada has a narrative that our Indigenous First Nations, our Native Indian population, they were semi-nomadic peoples that lived in teepees and followed herds of buffalo and so on. But right here, they're saying that, they have traditions where they give thanks for crops. So obviously they were staying put for extended periods of time if they were able to plant and cultivate and harvest crops. I mean, there's not that much in terms of wild edibles. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, when it comes to European Thanksgivings in Canada, we have a few tales to tell. Oh, here we go. As the story goes, in 1578, English explorer Martin Frobisher, there's that guy again, and his crew gave thanks, and communion was observed either on land at Frobisher Bay in present-day Nunavut or on board a ship anchored there. So they don't even know. This is the official story, but they don't know if it was on land or aboard their ship. All right, anyway. The explorers dined on salted beef, biscuits, and mushy peas. The cornerstone of any delicious Thanksgiving meal, and gave thanks through communion for their safe arrival in then Newfoundland. Wait, I thought Frobisher Bay in Nunavut. Now they're saying Newfoundland. It's not even close to each other. It's thousands of miles away. As a matter of fact, let's put a pin in this for a second. Let's go to the goggle machine and look at the goggle maps here for a second. Because I'm telling you, Newfoundland and Baffin Island are nowhere near each other. Here's Newfoundland and here's Labrador. I guess one could say Labrador is close to Baffin, because here's Baffin Island. It's closer to Greenland than it is to Newfoundland. This is Newfoundland, the rock. This is Labrador right here. And then this is Quebec, obviously. And this is Baffin Island, way the hell up here. And Frobisher Bay, I believe, is here. Anyways, this is the Northwest Territory of Nunavut. So they're trying to find a Northwest Passage through here or up around here, and they always get stuck in the ice. Yeah. A likely story. Anyway, back to the article here. See what's going on with this shenanigans. Martin's in the box. Sorry I'm late, guys. I only just noticed the new time of show change. Thank you for joining me here. No need to apologize, Martin. This is kind of a one-off thing. It's Thanksgiving here in Canada this weekend, so I'm going to be celebrating it here today, later on with my family. So push the stream start time ahead quite a bit, because you're my favorite people here. I got to spend some time with you guys as well. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, so yeah, the salted beef and mushy peas. Okay, this is now accepted as the first Canadian Thanksgiving, 43 years before the first American Thanksgiving. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Us Canadians, we have such an inferiority complex. We always got to try to outdo everybody somehow. Anyway, 48 years later, on November 14th, 1606, inhabitants of New France under Samuel de Champlain held huge feasts of Thanksgiving between local Mi'kmaq and the French. Yes, the French and the indigenous First Nation of the Mi'kmaq. Pretty good friends, actually. Got along pretty well. Though not known at the time by the settlers, cranberries, rich in vitamin C, are credited with helping avoid scurvy. The neighboring Mi'kmaq likely introduced the French to cranberries, or as they called them, petites pommes rouges, little red apples. So you don't get the scurvy on your ships, you see. Champlain's feasts were more than an annual affair to prevent the scurvy epidemic that had decimated the settlement in Ile Sainte-Croix in the past winters. The Ordre de Bon Temps, Order of Good Cheer, was founded, offering festive meals every few weeks. Medical treatises recommended better nutrition, more food, and entertainment to combat scurvy. Entertainment helps fight scurvy. So if you play some music, you're not going to die of scurvy, I guess. So, get on that accordion or that lute or banjo or what, I don't know. Anyway, however, despite this history of uniquely Canadian Thanksgivings, our modern concepts of Thanksgiving were influenced by our American neighbors. Foods that are associated with a traditional Thanksgiving, such as North American turkey, squash, and pumpkin, were introduced to Nova Scotians in the 1750s. After the American War of Independence, the arrival of the United Empire Loyalists ensured the continuation of spreading of this traditional fare to other parts of the country. Today, Canadian Thanksgiving is held on the second Monday in October every year, or at least has been since Canadian Parliament declared it so on January 31st, 57. Before this Thanksgiving in Canada had been held sporadically, often coinciding with other major events or anniversaries. In 1879, Thanksgiving was officially declared a national holiday to be held November 6th. Wow. Get the date straight, will you? Thanksgiving in Canada coincides with the completion of harvest in much of the country. Yeah, no kidding. What are they harvesting in this photo? Looks like turnips, sweet potatoes, yams. I don't know. Those could be turkeys for all I know. All right, more shenanigans ensuing here. The most recent date change to the second Monday in October was largely the result of the First and Second World Wars, which we officially remember each year on November 11th, Remembrance Day. This was so that the two holidays would not fall on the same weekend. As Thanksgiving in Canada has historically been celebrated on several different dates, it is fitting that even though it is observed on Monday, families are equally as likely to celebrate Sunday or Saturday. Most Canadians embrace the change of date in October since that period better coincides with the actual completion of harvest in much of the country. Yeah, so why did it bounce it around? If October makes sense in the first place because of the harvest, I don't know. It's goofy. Anyway, Parliament officially declares Thanksgiving as a day of general thanksgiving to Almighty God for the bountiful harvest in which Canada has been blessed. While this mandate for Thanksgiving may not be observed by all Canadians in its entirety, the ideas of being thankful, spending time with family, and sharing delicious meals still remain. There you go. That is from canadahistory.ca. Again, link in the description below for that. Martin says, we're missing Hippie. She's so friendly, it's not the same without her. Yeah, Hippie's probably asleep. Because I think it's 5, maybe 6 in the morning over in Wales. Something like that. So she might even just be waking up and fixing herself a spot of tea. DN in the box. Howdy, howdy, my friend. Good to see you. Happy Thanksgiving there, eh? All right, let's see what the Canadian Encyclopedia says here, just for shits and giggles, shall we? Thanksgiving in Canada. The Canadian Encyclopedia.ca. First official annual Thanksgiving in Canada was celebrated on November 6th, 1879. Okay, so far that lines up. Though Indigenous peoples in Canada have a history of celebrating the fall harvest that predates the arrival of European settlers. So again, they're saying that Indigenous people harvested crops, not necessarily living in teepees or wigwams following the buffalo. Sir Martin Frobisher and his crew are credited as the first Europeans to celebrate a Thanksgiving ceremony in North America in 1578. They're followed by the inhabitants of New France under Samuel de Champlain in 1606. The celebration, featuring uniquely North American turkey, squash, and pumpkin, was introduced to Nova Scotia in the 1750s, became common across Canada by the 1870s, and then in 57 it was proclaimed yada, 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 as a statutory holiday in all provinces and territories except Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. It's weird. I wonder why. Maybe not because of not much of a harvest going on in the Maritimes. It's more fishing region. Although Prince Edward Island is famous for its potatoes. So there would be a potato harvest in the late fall. I don't know. Anyway, origins and history of Thanksgiving in Canada. Indigenous peoples in North America have a history of holding communal feasts in celebration of the fall harvest that predates the arrival of European settlers. The Smithsonian Institute, oh, well, you got to believe them, has noted that some First Nations sought to ensure a good harvest with dances and rituals. The European settlers brought with them a similar tradition of harvest celebrations, for which the symbol was a cornucopia or horn of plenty, which dates back to European peasant societies. The first Thanksgiving by Europeans in North America was held by Sir Martin Frobisher and his crew of the Eastern Arctic in 1578. Yeah, and then there's their salted beef, biscuits, so on and so forth. For their safe arrival in what is now Nunavut, they celebrated communion and formally expressed their thanks through the ship's chaplain, who, according to explorer Richard Collison, made unto them a godly sermon, exhorting them especially thankful to God. Okay. Nice spelling error there. In 1606, in an attempt to prevent the kind of scurvy epidemic that had decimated the settlement at Ile St. Croix, in the winter of 04-05, Samuel de Champlain founded a series of rotating feasts at Port Royal called the Order of Good Cheer. Local Mi'kmaq families were also invited. The first feast was held on 14th of November, 1606, to celebrate the return of Jean de Biencourt de Poutricon from the expedition. Having attended the festivities, Marc Lescarbot remarked that they consisted of a feast of a discharge of musketry and as much noise as could be made by some 50 men, joined by a few Indians whose families served as spectators. All right. Shooting their muskets up in the air. Yeehaw! Let's celebrate. Anyway, this was 17 years before what is often recognized as the first American Thanksgiving, the Pilgrim celebration of the first harvest in Massachusetts in 1621. It's actually predated by several similar events in New England colonies by at least 14 years. So now they're saying a bunch of other places did it before Massachusetts now. The prototypical Thanksgiving feast featuring a uniquely North American turkey squat. Yeah, you introduced it. Okay, got that part already. When and why has Thanksgiving been observed in Canada? The first national Thanksgiving in Canada was celebrated in the province of Canada in 1859. It was organized at the behest of leaders of the Protestant clergy who appropriated the holiday of American Thanksgiving, which was first observed in 1777, and established a national day of public thanksgiving and prayer in 1789. In Canada, the holiday was intended for the public and solemn recognition of God's mercies. Historian Peter Stevens has noted some citizens objected to this government request, saying it blurred the distinction between church and state that was so important to many Canadians. Really? That's what they were all heated about? Was that the government decided to proclaim an official day and they're upset about it? Sheesh. First Thanksgiving after Confederation was observed the 5th of April, 1872, a national civic holiday rather than a religious one. It was held to celebrate the recovery of the Prince of Wales, later King Edward VII, from an illness. he had a fever. Thanksgiving, everybody knows the best cure for a fever is turkey, I guess. Thanksgiving was first observed as an annual event in Canada, yada, yada. Okay, this is all rehashing the same stuff here. A lot of photos of Thanksgiving celebrations that have anything to do with Canada is mostly war-related, victories of WW1 and so on. Beginning in 1921, Thanksgiving and Armistice Day introduced and were celebrated on the same day. Yeah, okay. Differences amongst provinces. Here we go. This is getting convoluted. Thanksgiving is an official statutory holiday in all provinces and territories except PEI, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. It's called Action de Grâce in Quebec and is celebrated to a much lesser extent there than in the rest of the country, given the holiday's Protestant origins and Anglo-nationalist associations. Not true. I was born in Montreal, Quebec, and I lived there for the first 10 years of my life, and we celebrated Thanksgiving every Thanksgiving, and it was a huge dinner at my grandparents' little farm. There'd be at least 40 of us there. We'd have to have dinner in shifts, actually. And then, of course, you have the kids' table. The main difference among the other provinces tend to concern the dishes that they're served with the meal. For example, Jig's dinner is often preferred over turkey in Newfoundland. Pumpkin pie is a common dessert nationally, but there are also regional favorites. Nanaimo bars and butter tarts. Yeah. Some have argued that the ceremony of giving thanks celebrated by Sir Martin Frobisher was not a real Thanksgiving. Just say it's a ceremony of giving thanks, so how is it not a Thanksgiving? Anyway, it's right there, giving thanks, Thanksgiving. The argument stems from the reason for giving thanks, that the holiday can only be associated with the celebration of the harvest. Europeans who brought the tradition to North America did not mark the day by giving thanks for a successful harvest. However, the Canadian and American holidays no longer restricted to harvest activities and have become a day for gathering family to give thanks for their general well-being. In that sense, one might observe that tradition has come full circle. So there you go. Another confusing, convoluted article that baffles, befuddles, and bewilders a guy. It's all over the place. Ridiculous. Yeah, that's right, Phil. He says it's all crap history. You got to throw a bunch of dates in there to muddy the waters so that, anybody looking into it just gets confused and it's just like, the hell with it. Let's have some turkey. So I've got a little video here. This is a funny little skit, a humorous little skit that I found on a channel here on the HooTubes. And this is explaining Canadian Thanksgiving to Americans. It's just a minute and a half long, and it's pretty funny. So let's have a look at this and see what is what here.
Hey, neighbor. Oh, hi, America. Something smells good. That's probably the turkey. Turkey? Bit early, don't you think? Not really. It's Thanksgiving weekend. Nice try, neighbor. Thanksgiving's not until November. In Canada, it's in October. Really? Really. Huh. Canadian Thanksgiving. We just call it Thanksgiving. Then when's Canadian Halloween? October 31st, same as you guys.
Huh. Canadian Thanksgiving, he says. We just call it Thanksgiving. Yeah, that's true.
So your Christmas is in November. Weird. No, it's... When do you guys celebrate New Year's? What? January 1st, same as you. Man, I never understood the metric system. It's not the... Is your Thanksgiving dinner provided to you by the government? As part of your universal health care? No. So it doesn't cover everything. Listen, Thanksgiving in Canada is just like Thanksgiving in the United States. It's a time for friends and family to get together and eat some food and be thankful for all the good stuff. Huh. You don't say. We have plenty. Do you want to come over? That's mighty neighborly of you. Don't mind if I do. So y'all have candied yams with marshmallows as well? No, that's gross. Sorry. Fair enough.
There you go. Do you have candied yams with marshmallows too? No, that's gross. It is gross. No offense, but it's not a thing up here. The pumpkin pie, the turkey with all the fixings and all that, sure. But the candied yams with the marshmallows, that's where we draw the line up in Canada land, I guess. I don't know. My pal Bill is here. William Powell's in the box. Howdy, welcome. Yeah, I thought it was pretty cute, pretty funny. I never understood the metric system. Wait, what? Does that have anything to do with the metric system? So what do you say, since we're on a roll with watching videos here, take a mid-show break, give you a sneak peek at your upcoming midweek here. Vintage footage will be coming up Wednesday. Just as a reminder, or if you're new to the channel, every Wednesday, I upload a video anywhere from like a minute and a half to, 5-6 minutes long, old-timey vintage footage. The older, the better I can get. I try to keep it Canadian content. I sync it up with some music, which I also try to keep Canadian. And I put that up every Wednesday for you. Every Friday, you get some boots on the ground videos here on the channel where I explore old world mudflood buildings here in Calgary, or sometimes I'm able to venture out on a little road trip up to Edmonton or to some small town here in southern Alberta. That's every Friday. And of course, every Sunday, back here for the live show. And then again, as a reminder, thank you very much for joining me here at this much earlier time slot for this Canadian Thanksgiving edition of the show. Canadian Turkey Day, you know, where we're taking a look at Canadian Thanksgiving, the history, and so on and so forth. I like yams and sweet potatoes, both. Yeah, see, I'm with Phil. I'll have them with butter. I don't know, just the candied yams. Yeah, sure, but the marshmallow thing is just odd. I don't know. Marshmallows with s'mores, of course. Marshmallows in your hot cocoa or hot chocolate. Yep, okay, no problem. Rice Krispie squares. Yeah, sure. But on sweet potatoes, I don't know. Don't knock it till you try it, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, without further ado, let's give you a sneak peek at your upcoming midweek. And then when we come back, we're going to have a look at some photographs and, have a little bit of fun. Mess around a little bit. So this one is the Buffalo World's Fair. And this is their boat ride along the canal there in the Old World's Fair. And this one is about just over 6 minutes long. Got some great music. So if you've got some ear goggles, put them on, plug them in, smoke them if you got them, because this one's a banger. And as mentioned, just over 6 minutes. After this, be right back. So stick around. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
pushing me on. Without you alone, and the river's running through my veins. Lately she don't seem the same, and the blood keeps calling out my name. My will must be strong. She rides with a different life. My will must be long. I'm still pushing for different heights. In the wisps of the wind, low with the sticks again. The river runs red, and I'm left alone. And the river's running through my veins. Lately she don't seem the same, and the blood keeps calling out my name. And the river's running, yeah. Help me, baby. Help me, baby. Help me, baby. Help me, baby. Ooh, yeah. Help me, baby. Help me, baby. Help me, baby. Yes.
All right. And we are back. Once again, thank you very much for shooting in, joining a fella here. Frankie, New West Reset Live, episode 87, Canadian Turkey Day. Don't you know? On this quite nice fall late morning here, just a little bit past 11 a.m. local time, mountain time, of course, here, Calgary, Alberta. Officially, Thanksgiving is tomorrow here in Canada, but most celebrate it today. That's what I'm going to be doing later on. That's why the much earlier start time for the show. So once again, thank you everybody for joining me here for the early morning Sunday edition, I guess. So at the top half of the show, we covered some of the official story of Thanksgiving up here in Canada, a little bit just in general of North America. Links for the all the sources cited in the description below, as well as my location map, guy's email, all my other socials, and the guy's PayPal too. If you want to, send a guy a couple of Canadian doll hairs, I'm very grateful. Thank you. So thanks for joining me here. Really appreciate it. That was, by the way, the band for that was called the Tea Party. A couple of people called that out right out of the gates here. Morgan, Isabella Live called it out. Rhonda's here right away. Tea Party! Exclamation point. Excellent band out of Canada. I think they're out of Ontario, somewhere in Ontario, Toronto-ish area. They're a trio. One of those bands out of Canada that's a trio band. Canada likes their trios that sound like 5-piece bands. Jeff Martin, I believe, is the frontman, songwriter, lead singer, guitar player. So thanks for joining me. We've got DN here. As mentioned, Isabella Live 2.0. Morgan's here. Kathy Childers in the box. Hippie Shake is here as well. William Pals and Phil Henry. Good to see you, fellas. Thanks for shooting in. Turtle says it sounds awesome through my car stereo and speakers because I made Turtle hungry. Turtle's headed to the store. Oh, geez. What are you getting, a turkey sandwich? 3 fingers. Good to see you. Yeah, great footage, that Buffalo World's Fair, that canal boat tour. It's just you get to see all the wonderful old world buildings in the background. It's quite the sight to see, for sure. Oh, you're gonna have your Frankie fingers over here, huh?
So now you know what I'm talking about with the whole New West Reset thing.
No.
What?
No.
What I said about Frankie Fingers. That Frankie Fingers and New West Reset are the same.
Wait, what?
Oh yeah, she don't stand no cheating. She don't stand none of that.
So happy Thanksgiving to all of you there, all my Canadian friends. Happy Thanksgiving to you. And hey, if you're other parts of the realm, happy Thanksgiving to you too. Maybe get yourself, I don't know, maybe have some turkey a little early. Why not? Except Turtle, getting a healthy snack. Well, turkey's kind of healthy-ish, isn't it? I think it's just all the other stuff that goes with it. The gravy and the stuffing and that sort of thing. Anyway, thanks for joining me here. Thanks for taking time out of your Sunday to wind down your weekend here with yours truly on this early edition of the show. My niece is going to be hosting, or hostessing, I should say. Her and her husband are going to be co-hosting the Thanksgiving dinner this year. So around 2-3 o'clock, guy's going to head on out over there and get together with some family and loved ones and have a nice meal and, I don't know, goof around with the old man, tell tall tales, so on and so forth. The usual. Yeah, that's right, Hippie. Hippie says, wow, your Thanksgiving Day is different to USA then. Yeah. Generally speaking, they say that coincides with the harvest. And with our harvest being much earlier up here, winter comes pretty early. So therefore, it pushes our Thanksgiving, further ahead in the calendar. But as we had a look at it, the top half of the show here, it's the story of Canadian Thanksgiving, and it was very convoluted. It just happened over here at this time with these dudes. No, actually, it was this time over here with these dudes. Whatever. Newfoundland eats salted beef. So, it's like, wait, what? What? Yeah, everything else is the same. You know, Halloween and Christmas and New Year and Boxing Day and Remembrance Day, all of that's the same. It's just our Thanksgiving. Easter's, that's all the same too. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, as mentioned, everything that we discussed top half of the show, links in the description below, as well as my location map and email and so on and so forth. So if you want to get a hold of a guy, if you got some ideas for the show or you got some cool photos you want to share or something, certainly be glad to hear from you. Links below. All right, so we had a quick look at where Newfoundland is and where Baffin Island is, because these are kind of two of the disputed places that they're saying Canada's first Thanksgiving was celebrated. Hippie says, my uncle lived in Newfoundland for 37 years. He says everything was salted. Well, yeah, I guess I could see that. You know, got to preserve the stuff, and it's a big fishing economy in Newfoundland. A beautiful part of the country out there in Newfoundland, too. Just gorgeous coastlines and beautiful little fishing villages and hamlets, and quite nice large cities, too, you know, St. John's and so on. All right, so let's have a look at some photographs here, maybe, shall we? A little bit. See what is what. What have I got here? I don't have tons. I've just got some old photos of sort of various old black and white shots of Thanksgiving celebrations here in Canada, kind of early on in the time period. Again, we're going to see with these that they mostly coincide with end of wartime victory celebrations. So, you know, they're giving thanks for, you know, victory over, I don't know, the axis of evil or something back in WW1 and 2 and so on. But then I've also got a small folder of photos of, because they made mention in it, and I think all three of the articles that we cited at the top half of the show, of the first Indigenous First Nations Canadian Native Indian peoples, the Mi'kmaq, of which our friend Old World Mi'kmaq in the box is a member of that nation. He's Mi'kmaq. So we're going to have a look at that as well, some old photos, because the Mi'kmaq are a little different than what you might expect when you say, you know, Indigenous First Nations Native Indian. Anyway, before we get into that, let's have a look at some of these photos just of the early Thanksgiving celebrations. Matt Fiddler is here. Happy Canadian Thanksgiving from North Carolina. Thank you very much, Mad Fiddler. Appreciate it. Hope you're doing well and everything's okay and you're staying safe down there in the Carolinas. It's been rough. It has been rough. William Powell says, I have a cast iron skillet full of food right now that I cooked when it was cold this morning on the wood stove. Sounds delicious. Absolutely delicious. Anyway, let's see what we have here for these photographs. Doodle-doo-doo. So basically, here's what we're looking at, right? This is what they were doing. They were looking for the Northwest Passage. And apparently, Captain Frobisher, one of his ships in his fleet, struck some ice and glug, 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 sank to the bottom of the Arctic Ocean, I guess. So when they finally did make landfall or were able to anchor offshore safely, they had a big celebration. Whew, we didn't die. Thank goodness for that. They had their minister, their chaplain on board the ship, and he gave an official prayer, and then they had a meal. So, yeah, there's that. Oh, look, you got some turkeys. Of course, look at all the snow on the ground. This is definitely a shot. This is actually a turkey farm near Ottawa. This photo is from 1920. A turkey's a pretty good sized bird too, right? She's about as big as a goose, maybe even bigger. The female, the males get even bigger by the looks of it. Not the best looking bird though, right? Kind of fugly looking, right? Like who would look at that and go, that looks delicious. I'm going to roast that in the oven and eat it. This photo here is just, family getting together. This photo is from 1906. And that's really, at least for me, and for I think the majority of Canadians, it's safe to say, this is what Thanksgiving is about. It's just getting together with your family, relaxing, and spending some time with your loved ones. But as mentioned, Thanksgiving here in Canada, very, very heavily associated with the church, and again with war times, battles, skirmishes. This is a post WW1 Remembrance Day Thanksgiving celebration. There was a big parade, and then everybody celebrates by getting together and having a meal. Heidi Easterholm in the box. Esterholm. Truck drivers call turkeys bowling balls because they're on the roads and damage their trucks. Oof, yeah. Well, hitting one of those would be, even in a big truck, would be rather startling. Turkeys are pretty big. See, another Thanksgiving ceremony that could probably more be referred to as a Remembrance Day or Armistice Day celebration. Always with huge gatherings, you'd have, some official sash-wearing members of the governing bodies give speeches and so on, and then, you'd have a big celebration. Then there'd be a parade and that sort of thing. This is the armistice in Montreal. Look at this thing in the background, will you? Have a look at that. Not to mention all these back here. This I pulled from, I think, one of the wiki sites, wiki pages. Again, I'm not sure, even now that we can zoom in, I'm not sure what these are. It says Thanksgiving harvest. These look like some kind of root vegetable. Root vegetable, I don't know. It could be sweet potatoes or yams, possibly. I don't know, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 truckloads of whatever that is. Where are the Pilgrims? Well, they're in Massachusetts there, don't you know? We didn't have Pilgrims up here in Canada, apparently. We had dirty Frenchmen fur traders that made friends with the Mi'kmaq. Oh, and then we had top hat wearing aristocrats like this that would, go for a horsey ride to celebrate their Thanksgiving. That's their festivities, all of these highfalutin folks. Whereas, your average everyday person would, have a more modest celebration, shall we say. I'm going to, for those of you that missed it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play that quick little funny little skit again for you, just in case you missed it at the top half of the show. This is explaining Canadian Thanksgiving to Americans. Just a little skit that I found here on a channel on YouTube, about a minute and a half.
Hey, neighbor. Oh, hi, America. Something smells good. That's probably the turkey. Turkey? Bit early, don't you think? Not really. It's Thanksgiving weekend. Nice try, neighbor. Thanksgiving's not until November. In Canada, it's in October. Really? Really? Huh. Canadian Thanksgiving. We just call it Thanksgiving. Then when's Canadian Halloween? October 31st, same as you guys. So your Christmas is in November. Weird. No, it's... When do you guys celebrate New Year's? What? January 1st, same as you. Man, I never understood the metric system. It's not the... Is your Thanksgiving dinner provided to you by the government? You know, as part of your universal health care? No. So it doesn't cover everything. Listen, Thanksgiving in Canada is just like Thanksgiving in the United States. It's a time for friends and family to get together and eat some food and be thankful for all the good stuff. Huh. You don't say. We have plenty. Do you want to come over? That's mighty neighborly of you.
Not so subtle a hint there with it. Just giving that look.
Don't mind if I do. So y'all have candied yams with marshmallows as well? No, that's gross. Sorry. Fair enough.
Of course, you gotta have the sorry in there too, right? No, that's gross. Sorry. Sorry, eh? Yeah, that's right, Heidi. Lead-filled beaver top hats, eh? Yes, that's right. The Mad Hatter making all them hats because, you know, Canada was built on the back of the beaver fur trade, don't you know? Anyway, let's have a look at some of the photos here that I've gathered up. This just picked up a few, just to give you an idea here what we're talking about. And if you're been with the channel, if you're a friend of the channel and you've been around for a while, I have in the past covered the indigenous Canadian First Nation of the Mi'kmaq, which is generally accepted, and I would agree that they're thought of as being the very oldest of the indigenous peoples here in Canada. They're kind of an East Coast nation, kind of in and around the northeast of the United States, you know, Maine and Vermont and so on. And then up here in Canada, in Quebec, a little bit of Ontario, but Quebec, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia most especially, you know, New Brunswick. So let's see what we've got here. So when you hear, oh, they feasted the first Canadian Thanksgiving, you know, they were helped out in the winter by the Canadian Indians, same story as the American Thanksgiving. They shared the food with them, so, you know, and taught them their ways so they could survive through the harsh winters. So when you hear, you know, Native Indian, you probably think, you know, there you go, teepees and, you know, buckskin tunics and feathers and hair and long braids and so on. But the Mi'kmaq, they've been around a long time. This teepee thing is shenanigans for the Mi'kmaq. And not much feathers and buckskin loincloth type attire for the Mi'kmaq. Very unique looking style of dress and their old customs. As you can see here, looking much different than what you might expect for, you know, the Canadian Wild West Indigenous Canadian Indian. The hats are very, very unique and very distinct. You can see all the beautiful embroidery work. Not much in the way of feathers. It's mostly little metal trinkets, pounded small metal medallions, and of course seashells, right? The Mi'kmaq taught themselves early on how to harvest the salmon and other seafood from the Atlantic Ocean. So there was no need for them to, as you know, the popular narrative we're told about Indians, there was no need for them to be, migratory or nomadic and following around herds of buffalo or what have you. So they lived in permanent lodges and permanent structures. Of course, this photo is a little bit later on. This is from the late teens or early 20s, but the Mi'kmaq towns and villages, they had permanent structures. Now, down by the water's edge, where they would have all of their salmon and other seafood harvesting implements and gear and things that they would set up along the coastline there they would set up sort of semi-permanent or more temporary shelters that resembled teepees or wigwams in terms of the shape, right? That sort of cone shape. But instead of using canvas or buffalo hide to wrap around the poles that form, the sort of the cone of the teepee, again, they were a little bit more permanent in the sense that they would use tree bark instead of the animal hides, or cotton canvas that would be traded. They would trade some fur pelts or fish or venison for canvas from, let's say the Hudson's Bay Fur Trading Company. And with that, they could build their so-called teepees. But the Mi'kmaq, absolutely no need for that at all. They were completely self-sufficient. They planted and harvested crops, and as mentioned, did the same with seafood. They harvested seafood, lobster and salmon and all kinds of seafood. So this is an example of, it's hard to see from this, but this is an example of one of their so-called teepees. And you can see here that, yeah, there's, poles set up, but this material here that makes up the walls, the rigid walls of this, is tree bark. You can see even in the back here, there's a fence built. So they would just set these up close to the shoreline so that when it came time to harvest, seafood at certain times of the year, depending on what, the salmon was running or the lobster were coming in to breed or lay their eggs or whatever, then they would go down from the village or their town to closer to the coastline, and they would stay there for, a week or 2 or 3 while they were taking care of whatever they were harvesting there. And then they would smoke the fish and so on and so forth over smoky fires and in smoke houses, and then bring that back up to the village. So you can see here another permanent structure, wooden, I guess, cabin or home. The Mi'kmaq as well are famous and known for hockey sticks. And it's now fairly commonly accepted that the Mi'kmaq basically invented what we now know today as the game of hockey, or ice hockey, if you will. Although up here we just call it hockey, eh? You can see here in the background, permanent structures. You even got a sort of a wagon here. Here's some of the tree bark that you can see. So even with chopping firewood and so on, they're going to remove the bark because they can use that and serve a different purpose. So they're not going to burn that with the rest of the wood. I think this is a smokehouse here that this lady's building or tending to, so you would hang the fish or even venison or whatever here to smoke it. There he is. Birch bark canoe as well. Again, you could see here much more permanent styles of dwellings as opposed to animal hide or canvas wigwams or teepees. And again, the indigenous peoples themselves, not looking much like what we've been taught are the, the American Indian. So here you can see permanent structure, a cabin or sort of a small shack type. You've got wood shingles and the whole bit. It's completely permanent, made out of wood. And here in the background, you can see the more semi-permanent, closer to the shoreline. Like this whole village is probably quite close to the water's edge. There's a little bit of a later photo. This is from the 70s, but giving you an idea of the dwellings in the Mi'kmaq communities, and that they were a seafaring and waterfaring peoples. And because they were probably Canada's, most likely Canada's earliest Indigenous nation, they would have used the waterways and the coastlines as modes of transportation, methods of travel. They didn't look at, the rivers and lakes as being obstacles. They used them as opportunities to get around. Old World Mi'kmaq in the boxing, the New England tribes basically lived in mansions. Yeah, the longer that the family unit or the smaller tribe that would make up the, smaller tribes would make up the larger nation of Mi'kmaq as a whole. And depending how long they've been in that certain area, yeah, they would have had time to build larger and larger homes. Like this, again, this is from the 1970s, but this is no slouch, So when all of these early European explorers made landfall here in, what would become Canada land, British North America, right? Or New France, as far as Quebec is concerned. This is what they would have encountered, along a waterway, with a bunch of the harvesting gear here for, seafood, and permanent and semi-permanent structures. And then here a big, huge wall. I mean, it's a lodgepole or a wooden pole wall, but nonetheless. So if you're harvesting crops and harvesting from the waterways, different types of seafood, there's absolutely no need for you to be a nomadic tribe that follows herds of wandering wildlife, right? You can stay put, plant your crops, you can rely on the sea for its bounty, and you can establish yourself and a community quite easily this way. So Samuel de Champlain and Sir Frobisher and the like, this is what they would have encountered. They wouldn't have encountered a bunch of, teepees and nomadic wandering tribes. They would have encountered large cities smaller cities or large towns all along the coast and peppered all throughout sort of the St. Lawrence region and the Maritimes region of Canada. Now, of course, this is just an artist's rendition or a drawing, but it's based on historic oral traditions. And the Mi'kmaq are the only Indigenous First Nations here in Canada that had a written language as well. So not only are a lot of their history passed down orally, but it was written down and passed down that way as well. So perhaps a little bit more of a degree of accuracy with this type of image based on the oral and written traditions of the Mi'kmaq. So there you go. What's going on with Kathy? Or Kathy Childers in the box saying, "Hippie Shake, have you ever heard of sweet potatoes? They're the same thing. Same thing as yams, kind of, sort of. They're related. They're not quite the same, but they're close." You ever had sweet potato fries, by the way? Like French fries, but made from sweet potato instead of potato? Man, oh man, is that delicious. Well, yeah, they would have harvested, wild grains. They would have, planted and cultivated and harvested wild grains that they eventually would domesticate, right? Or whatever the plant life equivalent of domestication is. Of course, we heard mention of cranberries. So there'd be cranberries, blueberries, and then, of course, the wild game. Oh, there's a siren going by. Wouldn't be a live show at New West Reset without a siren. Ambulance whipping by there. Kathy says they're both gross in her opinion, sweet potatoes and yams. I don't know. I kind of like them sweet potato fries. I'm not going to lie. Those are pretty delicious. Harvest Moon, yes. It's not a bad Neil Young album, by the way, too. The Harvest Moon. Anyway, let's see what else we got to have a look at here. Yeah, see? Yeah. I think so. They're delicious. Quite delicious. I would agree, Heidi. Heidi Esterholm saying the Indians were smarter than us. I think the indigenous peoples in North America, obviously they have a much longer history in these lands, so they were much smarter and more educated on how to live off the land and how to live in harmony with the land, what foods they could domesticate and plant and have reoccurring crops, yearly crops come up, what stuff was poisonous or unhealthy, what was medicinal, what wasn't, where you could find certain fish and certain wild game. So I think to a certain extent there might be some truth to the fact that as European settlers and colonists came over and were trying to eke out a living here, they would have had zero knowledge of the flora and fauna that they were now experiencing firsthand, having moved here. The only thing that they would have heard about it was just through, reading literature or hearing through word of mouth, other travelers that had been to the New World and come back. But I think a lot of them didn't really have an idea of just how cold and how much snow and how much wind and storms they would encounter in the winter, and how much earlier winter comes up here than in Europe or even in the United States. So they may have been caught by surprise, right, as they come over and they're trying to eke out a living, and depending on when they arrive and when they land, right, depending on what season it is, it may have been too late to plant crops. One would think they would try to time it so they arrive in the really, really early spring so that they can get going on, planting their seeds and building their homes and so on and so forth, right? They probably maybe have to clear some land, cut down some trees, so on and so forth. But those first couple of winters would have been rough. So I think there is some truth to the fact that they would have had to rely on indigenous First Nations peoples to basically take pity on them. These poor, dumbass, pale-faced Europeans coming over here and, just thinking, oh, yeah, it's not a problem. We can just start up a colony here and build a town. Once that first snow flies, you realize, ooh, it's coming early and coming colder. Phil Henry saying winter will hit here a week before Thanksgiving down in the U.S. Gotta check out the Farmer's Almanac. It's pretty accurate. I think up to like the 90s percentile accuracy, 97 or 92% accurate or something like that, with forecasting the weather for the following year. Also, you just got to watch the animals, right? If the squirrels are super busy gathering up and burying a lot of food, it's going to be a long, tough winter. When the geese migrate south from here, like the Canada goose, right, obviously. But we have tons of migratory birds that head south during the winter for to the warmer weather in the south. So if the geese are migrating south in, like, I don't know, September, then you know, ooh, it's going to be an early, like, winter's going to come early. But if the geese don't migrate until, I don't know, October or November, well, you know that you know, they know something that we don't, right? They can just kind of feel it, and they know that it might be a later start to the winter or a milder winter. Yeah, well, the French Canadians learned how to make maple syrup from the Mi'kmaq, from what I understand. It's not just drawing the sap from the maple tree, but it's actually cooking that sap and reducing it down so that it becomes that sweet liquid known as maple syrup. And then if you continue to boil it and cook it down even further, you end up with maple sugar. Well, maple toffee and then maple sugar. So this is something that the early settlers would have learned from the Mi'kmaq, but also other indigenous First Nations. Words matter in the box. Howdy, howdy, welcome. Says the Farmer's Almanac is way more reliable than Chuck, your meteorologist. Yeah, that's right. That's right. In fact, probably your, speaking of Chuck, you know, your woodchuck or your groundhog is probably more accurate than your meteorologist as well. Yeah, North Idaho, 2 hours from Canada land, eh? So a week before American Thanksgiving, or as you would call it in the US, Thanksgiving. This year's November 28th. So the week prior to that, around the 20th, 21st, winter is going to hit, possibly. And I know Idaho and Montana get very, very similar weather to us here in Canada, because obviously the border is just, you know, an arbitrary line drawn in the sand or on, you know, on maps. There's a lot of difference in the weather until you get quite a bit further down below the 49th parallel, or you hit both lines east or west, right? Obviously the west coast is going to be warmer, milder, wetter weather than it would be in sort of, you know, central Canada or north central, the Midwest of the United States kind of a deal. Yes, thank you, Hippie. Yeah, if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and all that stuff. Make sure you're still subscribed. If you think you're subscribed, just double check once in a while. Tend to be shenanigans sometimes where people think they're subscribed and they've been unsubscribed to a channel, and that's the YouTube's doing. I can't unsubscribe people. Only you can unsubscribe from a channel, or YouTube's can mess with it. Once in a while that happens. You know, they don't like channels that, you know, question the official story, right? They tend to shadow ban or find some reason to even just shut it down completely. Which is dumb.
Well, that's just silly.
Silly, yes. Idiotic, yes.
So where are we at here? We're coming up on 10 minutes to the hour, just before high noon here local time. So I think I'm getting ready to wind this thing down here for today. Again, I gotta have a quick little bite to eat and then get ready to attend family Canadian Thanksgiving dinner there, eh? Words Matter says, I saw my first possum last night. Really? Did it play possum? Like, did you startle it and it froze up on you? Because they will do that, actually. Heidi's wondering, so Frankie, how did they build those old world buildings in winter in Duluth, which is Minnesota, I believe, Duluth, Minnesota, or in Canada? Yeah, the colder regions, right? very, very suspicious, especially when we see these shortened timelines and build times on some of these buildings. Like, for example, some city hall or post office that's looking very castle-like with, dormers and cupolas and domes and, big pillars holding up, all kinds of fancy architectural details. And they give you a 1-year or even 2-year build time. But it's built, it's somewhere in, I don't know, Winnipeg, Manitoba, or somewhere in Toronto or something. And you're thinking, well, wait a second. This part of Canada or this part of the United States, whatever the case may be, they have winter like 5, 6, maybe even 7 months out of the year. So you're not going to be outdoors building in what's going to be minus 30 degrees Celsius weather. I mean, once the outer shell of the building is constructed, then you can work indoors and you can have temporary heating in there, and that's a different story. But when you're building let's say building, I don't know, excavating for a basement or building the foundation and then building the outer walls. I mean, if you're doing that in Thunder Bay, Ontario in February, I mean, it's just not going to happen. You're going to have 2 or 3 feet of snow. You're going to have cold northeasterly winds blowing in off of the Great Lakes. You're going to freeze your bippy. You know what I'm saying? You're going to freeze your bippy. Hey, Cousin Vinny's here. Happy Thanksgiving, Cousin Vinny. Good to see you. Yeah, Giuseppe didn't care how cold it was. He'll stack it a brick all day long. But yeah, that's a huge question, Heidi. That's a huge, huge question. Speaking of Cousin Vinny, recently Cousin Vinny and I took a road trip to a small town, not quite an hour south of Calgary, called High River. And we looked at an old world building there, and not to get too ahead of myself, because that video has already been edited and will be ready to view on the channel here shortly. I'll release it as a premiere because it's about an hour long. Cousin Vinny and I do a mudflood walkabout tour of this town of High River. And there is one significant old world building there that they give a 9-month, I believe it is, build date on it. And the majority of those 9 months that they say it was built were during the winter. So, and the winters get pretty rough here in and around, well, especially in sort of southwestern Alberta, because we got the Rocky Mountains, right? So we're already high up in elevation, and the close proximity to the Rockies, that some of those Rocky Mountains here in Canada are so high up in elevation that they have snow-capped peaks on them year-round, even in the height of summer. So we're so close to these mountains that you get snow and wind, and it gets cold real quick. The only reprieve that we get these things which are called the Chinook winds. It's a warm wind that blows off the Pacific Ocean, and as it goes over the Rocky Mountains, making its way eastward from the west, it loses all of that moisture in the form of snow or rain in the mountains. So by the time it comes down the eastern slopes of the Rockies to southwestern Alberta here where I am, it's just a warm, dry wind. And it's just a freak of nature, natural occurrence that happens where you could go from minus 20 Celsius to plus 15 Celsius in a matter of a day. Like, you go to bed at night and it's minus 20 and freezing cold, and you got to plug your car in and all that. You wake up in the morning 8 or 10 hours later, let's say, and it's above zero. It's 10, 15 degrees Celsius, which is around getting, between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And that can last for anywhere from a couple of days up to about a week. And then it subsides and goes away, and then it gets cold again. So, okay, there are little pockets of time during these Chinook winds where you could get some outdoor building work done. But you got to think, okay, you got 2 or 3 feet of snow. The Chinook winds blow in. The snow melts. Like, it's warm enough, long enough that a lot of that snow will melt. Maybe not completely, but now you're getting big puddles of melted snow, and you're getting mud. So you're getting mud that refreezes and turns to ice, and you're getting snow that melts, and some of the snow is still there, and it's just ridiculous to have to build some big, massive 2 or 3 story building that takes up half a city block, and we're going to do it in 9 or 10 months through the winter. It's nuts, just nuts. Yeah, that's right. You did have a picture of Giuseppe in that stack of bricks. Oh man, ridiculous. Yeah, you can stack those. He's like a postman, right? Neither rain nor sleet nor snow will stop him from the execution of his duties. In this case, building massive brick homes. Wait, what's this? You haven't heard of the Great Chinook of 1910, 1911? No, what's that? Are you pulling a guy's leg on this Canadian Thanksgiving weekend? Or are you serious about this? The Great Chinook of 1910. What is there, a Chinook that lasted a month or something? And that gave them time to knock up all these buildings? Hey, how come all these buildings have this built in 1910, 1911? Well, that was the boom times, you see. There was a Great Chinook that lasted a whole month. So they were able to get ahead of the 8 ball on the build time. That's why they could build that in 9 months instead of 3 years. Ms. Grandma in the chat. Good to see you. Hello and welcome. It's Canadian Thanksgiving up here, don't you know? So happy Thanksgiving to you. Well, in the winter, it's cold. Well, actually, let me roll that back a bit. Let me dial that back for a second. Parts of Canada during the winter are cold. There are parts of Canada during the winter that are very mild, like out in sort of southwestern British Columbia, right? It's the Pacific Northwest of the U.S., very similar. And on Vancouver Island, like their winter, they generally don't even get snow, especially along the coast. Like in the mountains, they do, obviously, like where Chris from Old World Exploration, where he lives in the British Columbia in the mountains there. But in and along the coast, especially the southwestern coast of British Columbia, they often do not get snow at all for years and years on end every winter. They may get some cold rain and gray skies and cloudiness, like a Seattle winter, let's say. But that would be about it. Oh, yeah. Could you imagine a Chinook lasting a whole year? Well, then you can just whack up those old world buildings in no time. Giuseppe and a couple of his buddies will do it on a long weekend. Oh, Vincent's saying, got to step away and vacuum the house before company arrives. No more typing. We'll keep listening, though. Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, well, I got to wind this thing down here in a couple of minutes anyways, because I got to get ready to attend my Thanksgiving dinner as well. So, yeah, thanks for shooting in, Cousin Vinny. Good to see you as always. Appreciate the again the recent trip down to High River. It was a lot of fun. We always have a lot of fun on our road trips. Because to be honest, I don't really do a lot of research prior to heading to some little town. I want to capture it on video, and I want my actual reactions to be as genuine as possible. So often I might just quickly look up on the Wikipedia when the town was founded, and that's about it. I may drop the little guy on the Goggle machine, on the Goggle Maps, just to maybe look up and down their main street of their old part of town, just to be able to get our bearings once we arrive there, in real life. Pull up in Vinny's car and pull over somewhere, find a place to park and get out and start hoofing it around. Ms. Grandma saying the houses are crazy expensive in BC. Alberta's getting crazy to afford. Everyone coming here, boom or bust in Alberta. Yeah, well, Alberta, especially Calgary, has always been kind of a boom town, right? Which I guess gives them a really good excuse to knock down a bunch of the old world buildings. We've got to make room for some new high-rise condos, don't you know? New high-rise office buildings. So, yeah. there's always that. So with that said, as mentioned, I think I'm getting ready to wind this thing down here for today. Before I go, I want to share a funny little video with you that Kathy sent my way. This is just a nice, fun little video. And yeah, this basically expresses how I'm going to feel later on today. Just filled with joy. And in this next video, you're going to see a dog. That's right, a dog, man's best friend, filled with joy. Let's have a look. That dog is having the time of his life. His tail is wagging like crazy. There you go. Thanks for that, Kathy. Appreciate it. Oh, man, she always sends me the best stuff. Jabberoo Joe in the box. Good to see you, Joe. Hey, Joe, what do you know? Hello, Joe. What do you know? Good day. Good to see you. Yeah, I started quite early today. It's a 10 a.m. local time, mountain time, start time today. Because it's Thanksgiving here in Canada, don't you know? So I'm going to be heading out for Thanksgiving dinner here rather shortly. So rather than skip the show, because I don't want to do that. I love spending my Sundays with you, my favorite people. So rather than skip a show, I'll just start it a little earlier. That way I get the best of both worlds. I get to spend time with you folks, and then I still get to have a nice turkey dinner. Yeah, no, it's no embarrassment today for you. Yeah, you gotta love that dog. That dog is just having a great time. And something tells me it didn't take that dog very long to figure out how to bounce on that trampoline. Anyway, there you go. So I think with that, that is going to seal the deal here today for Frankie. A New West Reset, New West Reset Live, episode 87, Canadian Turkey Day. Again, links below for everything that we looked at here today, as well as the aforementioned Cousin Vinny's New West Reset location map. You just click on that link, and it opens up the map, and then my icon appears in various locations that I've already done boots on the ground video. You click on that, the video link pops up, and you click on the link, and there you go. And as mentioned, BitChute, the Bumble, MeWe, a fellow's email, and PayPal. So thanks for winding down your weekend here with yours truly. Really, really appreciate that, as always. Kathy, I just got an email notification. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Very generous of you. Speaking of PayPal donations, just, what was it, yesterday? No, day before yesterday. Got an email from my local print shop here for me to proof the, sort of give the final approval for the proof that they sent of the new t-shirts that are going to be coming up here for the channel. And again, this isn't like merch that I sell for the channel. These are just gifts that I give out. I've had made, and I give out just to folks that have supported me and the channel here in various ways behind the scenes. So yeah, keep an eye out for that too, because once I get my grubby paws on that, I'll show that here on the channel as well. So that'll probably be in the next 2 to 3 weeks when they print them up and I can go and pick them up. What else is going on with the channel? Well, as mentioned last week, new episode of the Knuckleheads coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Going to try to get her in before the end of October. And we're going to be looking at Regina, Saskatchewan. Myself and my friend Chris from Old World Exploration. And also, I touched on it earlier, Cousin Vinny and I took that road trip to High River. So that will be, the video for that will be launched as a premiere. So we can sit and watch it together and commiserate in the box, in the chat while we're watching that. And various assortments of other shenanigans coming up here in the channel in the next few months. Got a Halloween special that's going to be coming up. That'll be in 2 weeks on the 27th. So there you go. So that is that. That's going to seal the deal here for Frankie. New West Reset and New West Reset Live, Canadian Turkey Day. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Thank you very much once again for shooting in, joining me. Appreciate it as always. Before you leave, do all the things down below here if you haven't already. And if you already have, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks to everybody who's going to watch the upload after the live. Appreciate your support as well. So until the next one, take care out there and have yourselves a good one. And don't eat too much turkey and OD on that tryptophan now. You'll fall asleep on the couch instead of watching the game. All right? Take care, everyone. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
It's a mystery. It's a mystery wrapped in a riddle inside an enigma.